I hate you. I hate the air that you breathe. I hate the fact that you're even living. You make me sick.
Gege undid it again. We already know the chapters have been gassed since it started the series, if we being honest, but why do you keep leaving these chapters with me asking more questions about what's going to happen, what's going on? I don't know what's going on at this point because there's so many things I want to know, but we're getting a lot of answers and a lot of theories being pretty much correct for the most part. But in terms of what we got in this chapter, it's going to be a lot to think about regarding Tengen and Kenjaku and potentially the Heian era. Let's get into it. I want to talk about the barrier techniques and strategies that were on display in this chapter from Kenjaku, Tengen, and Yuki. I guess first we'll talk about this old one, Tengen, whose plan was to have Kenjaku use his domain expansion and try to dismantle the domain expansion with the techniques she has in her Sunyata barriers. And we learned with the Sunyata barriers that you can configure your own images in the barrier. That's why in chapter 202, when Kenjaku and Choso were sitting in a theater, Kenjaku created that theater. I originally thought it was like a visual representation thing, but nah, he actually made that. It's kind of cool. Yuki didn't use her domain in this fight though, sadly, because of Tengen's info that she was given. Because if she used her domain first, it was going to be a race first before Tengen, and then she'd be at a disadvantage. But clearly it was more to it than that, and their plan effectively got erased because we saw as last chapter, Kenjaku has a barrierless domain like Sukuna. I kind of thought it was funny though how Gege wrote that well thought out plan and just wrote miscalculation at the end of the panel. And Kenjaku being the second best, but at this point, he might be the best barrier user in the series. It makes sense that he expand on his domain like this. I would like to know though what his bond and vow is with it. Sukuna's was the range, and I wouldn't be shocked if Kenjaku was the same. Range seems like the least taxing vows to really have on that. But man, Kenjaku, he's just different, bro. It's a problem. Like there's nothing he doesn't have at his disposal at this point. We find one weakness with cursed spirit manipulation, but then he has a barrierless domain. It's like, dog, he's something special. I say that. Let me get into the meat and potatoes of this advancement of Yuki versus Kenjaku. Kenjaku's domain, what the hard name to say, even though we saw it used, I'm not 100% sure what it technically does because from the looks of it, it's almost like a giant explosion of cursed energy, kind of similar to Maximum Uzumaki. The domain itself, it looks like an amalgamation of dead faces and a whole bunch of other things. Yuki using her simple domain in the exact same motion Todo did in Shibuya was a nice parallel touch since she taught Todo the simple domain, so it was cool seeing that. But the simple domain was ripped apart because Kenjaku's domain is just too much to handle right now. I'm going to touch on what's going on between Kenjaku and Tengen in a minute because there's a lot going on with that. But Tengen tried to dismantle Kenjaku's domain in the Sunyata barrier, but Kenjaku laughs it off, saying he's lived through the 1,000-year tug-of-war between the feuding giants, the Caprici's alliances, and betrayals of this world of curses. And I ain't gonna hold you, that was a pretty tough bar. Yuki took the damage and she's just covered in a pool of her own blood. And when I saw this, I knew she couldn't be dead, but it felt, I guess, uncomfortable to me, for lack of better terms. Not because of the blood and the gore, but because of the character Yuki. She's got such an upbeat personality, and seeing her covered in so much blood, you can barely see her face. Caught me a bit off guard, not gonna lie. And Yuki getting back up and continuing to fight Kenjaku with a broken arm and just throwing kicks, that was badass as her. But Kenjaku thought she was healing since Garuda was still out. But nah, she's still going and she's not healing. She's definitely hurt. Y'all gotta give her respect. I don't want to hear no more negativity towards Yuki from all you Yuta fans. Y'all gotta cut that out. And she took that domain expansion and got up still fighting. That's a feat for her. I'm classifying that as a feat. I also like the high kick combinations that lead into Garuda wrapping around Kenjaku like a snake. And then as Yuki falls down because she pretty much doesn't have that much left of her because of the blood loss, Choso pulls in at the end through the Sunyata barrier that he was dropped in at the start of the fight after Yuki repeats the type of guy she likes. Was unexpected. Big bro Choso coming in clutch, loading up a supernova, it looks like. And Kenjaku definitely didn't anticipate that at all from the looks of his face. And that was a great sequence to really end the chapter with a surprise. Although I feel like they really flew by. Like something about these chapters, I feel like they took like a couple minutes and then it's already over. But the biggest takeaway from this chapter is this panel right here. If you used their domain against mine, it wouldn't have been so boring, but it's your fault for trusting that thing. Tengen has kept something from all of you. The Culling Games, and it's cut off right there because he saw Garuda. We know Gege has foreshadowed and at times showed the past era, specifically in this, the Heian era. The way Kenjaku is talking about Tengen, they have to have had some sort of past with each other, whether it former disciple or former rivals. Who knows when it comes to that, but we always knew not to trust Tengen too much because Tengen is all-knowing. It will hide a lot of info if it can help what she wants to do. Now, after rereading the chapter, she's not a full-on traitor, but unless Tengen knows of something we don't that could potentially help the current situation, but it comes with a cost, I'm not really sure. But regardless, we now need to get Tengen's perspective and what she's thinking and her plans, what she's hiding from our cast, everything. Now the Culling Games caught offline. This could mean a couple things. Kenjaku could be revealing the true cause of the Culling Games, like it's one big diversion, or the Culling Games is a way to bring sorcerers together in order to potentially create that giant curse he theorized earlier, or the Culling Games has happened before and Tengen knows about it, and Kenjaku is simply using the Culling Games and modifying it to what he wants to create. It's so much I want to know, but every time it feels like we're close, we just get pulled back some more. And on top of that, it's a break next week. Man, that's tough. But Gege, you can't be doing this. Like, you can't keep dropping gems and then having us waiting this long. But you need your rest. I can't get mad at that. But great chapter per usual. Highlights was the Kenjaku dialogue about Tengen, and demon fighting spirit Yuki rising up and throwing Tekken level kick combos, and this fish she wore in the flashback.
My God, Lord have mercy. I mean, Lord. I'm sorry, I got distracted. I just started fantasizing.